put on Facebook, it's not mastering the first impression. That was what we did last time. Today's Training Tuesday is all about the discovery. So we're making sure that we're going to master the art, or at least gain an insight into the discovery, which is arguably the most important part of any sales process. If you'd agree with that, Chris.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got people dialing in from Melbourne, Perth, the sunny coast, so people all around Australia at the moment by the looks of it too.
I don't want to comment on, that's good. You said you were. That's all right, so what we're going to look at today, guys, is obviously, as we spoke about, the fundamentals. But Chris, maybe do you want to maybe give the guys an insight into why do we hammer home the importance of the discovery? What's the reason why we say that it's probably one of the single most important aspects? Once you've made your winning first impression, you have you've introduced yourself, whether that be digitally, physically, where possible, or over the phone. Why are we now looking at the discovery?
So try and remove the most painful thing around overcoming objections, right? So our job through an effective consultation is to proactively uncover the objections through that before we actually present the products and services to eliminate the objection process as well. Yeah,
okay. And what would you say for someone who's dialing in today who maybe they don't understand the SWISH method? So for those of you who maybe haven't seen us before, SWISH stands for Selling with Integrity and Selling Honestly. Chris, if you could give one piece of advice around the discovery, someone who's maybe never done sales training before, or perhaps they've been well versed in sales, what would you say would be maybe a number one, or your big tip around the discovery?
Yeah, good question. So I think for myself, one thing that I always look to do, as we talked about last week, was making the winning first impression through an elevator pitch. And the middle section of that, the T, is to tell them the problems that you solve. So through an effective discovery, it's about really uncovering whether that need is in there. So what I'd probably say for me is the 70-30 ratio talk time. That's not me talking 70% of the time. That's the customer speaking 70% of the time. And I'm speaking 30% of the time, asking highly effective, big picture questions to really unpack the customer's needs and wants.
Yeah, okay. And how would you, sort of advise around the types of questions? Obviously, there's lots of different ways of asking questions. There's different types of questions. So is there a structure that you use? What advice or guidance would you give around that?
Yeah, I think as a framework, and for people taking notes, I think it's really hard to give specific questions because, as we know, through disc profiling and things, everybody's situation and the way they receive information can be very, very different. But as a rule of thumb, what I'd be really looking to do is ask 5 to 7 big picture questions. And again, big picture questions are there, so it's got no framework in regards with the answer that you're about to receive. So as a really quick example, and if everybody can get ready in the chat section here, as a big picture question, the first word that comes in your mind, what do you like?
Or dislike. But no, let's not go negative, guys.
Yeah. So what do you like?
COVID-19, what do you like? So essentially, you're suggesting that by asking and hey, Frankie, has just joined us there. So by asking a big picture question, you're not going to ask them what do you like, but you're going to ask them what do they like about their service. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. But is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, for sure. And how would you sort of, I guess, framework your discovery, Rob? Have you got anything different to that?
I think starting with a big picture, I think probably one of the most powerful questions that you can ask is, what are you looking to achieve? What are you actually after today? How can I best assist? What are you looking for? What's the ideal outcome of our conversation today? And then building in on those big picture questions, like, okay, so in that regard, what do you like then? What are we after here today? Because then the more open we get, then we can start to funnel into, as you said, the more specific questions.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go off the bat and say, okay, well, what budget have you got for that? Because I don't know whether or not what we have is appropriate for that. Plus, I might need to understand a little bit deeper inside of what they're after first. So I think by asking them, what are you looking to achieve here today? And as we've seen in a couple of the comments already, people's, generic answers to what do they like are very different. So I think it provides a good basis for a platform to then start. So for example, Matt said, okay, motorsport. So I'd say, okay, well, what specifically do you enjoy about it? Is it the adrenaline rush? Is it the, do you enjoy the competitive nature? Do you like watching it? Do you like taking part? So yeah, Kelly, open-ended questions, things that are that aren't tied to specific, and they're certainly not closed as in a yes, no.
Yeah, and then I guess that gives you a really good understanding to the type of personality that you're dealing with as well. I think one big rule of thumb in the discovery for me, when it's, the old saying of trying to get blood out of a stone, you ask a question and you get the one-word answer. I think asking or sort of answering the questions that you're about to ask is probably one of the most powerful things that I've learned since sort of moving across here as well.
At all, Chris, you've smashed it. Reciprocity questions, yeah.
So how would you sort of deliver that in a role play environment? If you was looking to retrieve some information out of myself, and I've been very one-word answer all the way through your questioning, how would you sort of open me up?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say like, yeah, Chris, so look, I myself was, I've been in Australia for 5 years. What about you? I can hear you've got an accent there from a part of the UK. How long have you been in Australia for?
Yeah, I've been here for 7 years now.
7 years, yeah. And look, I've absolutely loved it here. And yeah, we started off in Sydney, a bit of Bondi, and before we moved to the sunny coast, before coming down to the Gold Coast. What about yourself? Where have you visited?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, for myself, I started on the Gold Coast, but as you can see with Rob's question there, he's providing a lot of information for me to sort of run at. So if I'm a little bit, shut off, then that's a really good way to open that up.
It also provides a platform for, so Chris, I actually came here on a working visa, then I got sponsored by ISR. I don't know if you've ever been through that process, mate, but it's a very long, arduous task. We had to go through a lot of due diligence to get over the line. And then I got my PR in May. What about yourself? How are you here?
Yeah.
And in doing that, I'm building value in ISR, talking about sponsorship, red tape, due diligence. So by sharing a little bit first before going into the question, you're subconsciously receiving that information. So yeah, so perhaps guys think around what can you share about yourself that adds value before you then ask the question.
And that's it. And it's the old rule of thumb, the question, answer, question, relate. And then when we're relating, it's about building value through first and third party stories. Next Wednesday at 12 o'clock, the CEO, Ryan Tuckwood, is going to be going live at 12 o'clock Queensland time on how to run through the 6 types of a third party story. So it's just really powerful to build more value in you, the individual, and obviously the company that you work for as well.
That's on that if you're in the academy, guys. The session with Ryan, but I think obviously the key for me anyway about truly understanding people's needs to customize the information that we're going to be giving is all based around the intelligence that we gather on that conversation. And like Chris has said there, using that structure of asking a question, receiving the information, banking it, and then ask another question essentially around that topic. Like what you want to avoid doing, or I believe anyway, is to not just ask lots of surface level questions. So if I said, okay, and why did you pop your details in? Oh, okay, I'm looking for sales training. Great, and what's your role in the business? Okay, perfect. And how many in the team? Okay, they're 3 decent questions, but I want to be able to dig deeper. So if I'm looking to dig deep, Chris, you're very good at this, being able to kind of conversationally unpack.
Yeah.
What do you do in that instance? How do you dig deeper, and what sort of questions are you asking?
Yeah, so for an example, we look at the elevator pitch, the 3 areas that we solve. One of them is increasing lead conversion. So if I said to you, Rob, as the potential client, mate, just give me an idea, what would you say your current conversion rate is? I'm going to get 80, 90, 95% closing rate due to the questions. Whereas if maybe I've gone on a little bit different scale, just give me an idea, Rob. So from a lead source perspective, what sort of avenues does your business currently use at the moment to generate inquiries?
So we use Facebook.
Okay, beautiful. Anything else?
Google Ads and LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome. And as a rough ballpark figure across all of the lead sources, how many inquiries would you recommend that you get in the business on let's say a weekly basis?
40.
About 40 leads. Nice. Okay. And from the 40 leads, what would you say, like the average sort of, individual that would move forward with yourself? What would you say the current conversion is at the moment?
The current conversion?
Yeah. So from 40 inquiries, rough ballpark figure, how many of them decide to move forward with you?
So 30%.
Around 30%. So you'd be looking, about 12 people a week moving forward with you?
About that, yeah.
Okay. Awesome. That's amazing. So that's for me really trying to dig into the specific numbers, but not going really, surface level as my first question, if that makes sense. So I really wouldn't go in with what's your conversion rate. I'd be going in there understanding where your lead sources are. Do you have an outreach team? Do you have an inbound team? Where are you sourcing the inquiries from? And then really funneling that down to the question that I'm obviously wanting to know is what's your current conversion rates at the moment? And from the other 38 people that don't decide to move forward with you, what would you say the most common reason is at the moment?
Oh, yeah, can't afford it.
Okay, beautiful. So just around the price of the product, or is it just the time? What would you really say around that?
Yeah, time. They don't see maybe they don't see the value or get a lot of stalls.
Okay, beautiful. And then for me, that's my big picture question that I've done around the conversion rate. Now it's my job to get off that subject and go and ask something completely separate to lead conversion rates. It might be the average sale, from a rough ballpark figure, what's your average transaction value, just so I can create enough logic behind then presenting what service I'm about to offer to the client if I feel like I can help.
So with that then, because that's something that maybe maybe we're different in that sense. So you would get that information and then not move on, but you kind of like, okay, I've got that information, go to the next line of questioning, which would be around average transaction values. Right. So whereas I would maybe go down the route of at that point asking, maybe sharing a third party story there, and then maybe asking them a commitment question. So I might say, okay, if we could perhaps solve that problem for you. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think get some low level commitment there, a little bit of buy-in, or are you still unpacking and discovering, or could you do a bit of both, do you think?
Yeah, I'd say both actually. People comment in the section as well. Any questions, your thoughts around that as well. But yeah, I think it depends on the customer. It really, really does. I think we know the way the conversation's going, but my job, in the consult is to ask questions. Naturally relate through third and first party stories. I could say 30% is a conversion rate. Rob, for the 6,000 companies that we get a very fortunate opportunity to coach, that's a good conversion rate. So good on you. What do you feel that you do well from a sales perspective then? Why do you feel that the conversion rate is quite high at the moment?
Okay, so you'd go, okay, what are you doing well? Why wouldn't you ask me at that point, what am I not doing well? Why are you going good rather than negative?
Breaking the mold. I think everybody, we can still build pain because we know that once there's a problem, you need to fill it with a solution. That's the reason that people purchase things. But yeah, I just like to keep the enthusiasm, as high as possible through the interaction as well. And naturally, when people say, well, I think I do this, and this well, but honestly, I think the main areas that I really need to work on is this. So I tend to find by asking a really positive question that you actually receive the information you're looking for anyway.
Yeah, rather than, because they're almost kind of expecting you to ask, well, why do you think you're not converting, or why are you not? So perhaps just give us a bit of context, guys. I'm looking at the Facebook page, we're looking at you. Can you guys put in some industries that we've got here? So obviously, Jared, we've got marketing, we've got wine sales. So can you guys put into the chat here the industries and maybe some questions that you want to ask us around questioning? We've got one here from Jared. When you're meeting a business owner and then walking to them to the meeting, and what are some great big conversation starters you use? So look, there's an obvious one at the moment, which is, COVID, and how are they, how are they dealing with it? I don't know, Chris, what are your, you do a lot of networking, just while we're getting some of the uniforms, retail, mental and emotional coaching for athletes, solar, but a lot of different industries here. So what are you actually asking? If you're approaching a business owner or somebody, what are you asking?
Yeah, I'd be asking really just the big picture questions around How's the week traveling? Obviously, quite early on to the new financial year. What's been the main big wins for yourself so far over the last couple of months? Moving forward, what sort of individuals or businesses are you looking to work for? So just asking questions about them. So hopefully that helps, Jared. I actually can't see the Facebook comments, so Rob's going to translate that across. But for me, I think to open anybody up is everybody loves talking about their products and services. Me and Rob are doing it on this particular session right now. So I think if you ask questions about how they're going and their products and services and the way that their business is moving forward, I feel like you'll start opening that up quite a lot. Hopefully that helps.
Well, and also people love talking about themselves. So the more that, there's that age-old saying that people don't remember what you said, but they remember how you made them feel. Yeah. It's really important that it's about them. It's never about us. And there are those people that have that innate ability to go, you walk away from an interaction going, geez, that guy was awesome. Mm-hmm. But you generally didn't do much. You just got them talking about themselves. Mm-hmm. Obviously, from having your sales goggles on, being able to always be aware of an opportunity, don't discount the value, especially for yourself, Jared, as a family man. This morning, in fact, I was in a networking group with some corporate business owners in Melbourne, and we were in some breakout areas, and I'm talking about my kids in there. I'm talking about, do you guys have any kids? I've got a couple of little ones myself, so and talking about that common ground, and you can really, even if they're a little bit further down the track. If you don't have kids, you could talk about, remember Ford, F-O-R-D. Chris, we did a session on not that long ago, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. So, being able to talk about the things that are important to others. It also depends on the context of the group that you're in. If you're approaching them in a corporate setting, that it's a business setting, maybe the conversation is more geared towards business. Yeah, absolutely. You might not necessarily be dealing specifically in a networking event. Maybe you're at a basketball game, or everyone went to the Suns. Or most of us went to the Suns on Sunday, Gold Coast Suns. So it's like, is it around business? So yeah, you've got to gauge that, and their response would typically drive the rest of the conversation, I feel. So what questions to ask. I
think it's about typically sometimes having your go-to as well. We talk about that a lot, Rob, from a phone, a face-to-face meeting as well, having a set go-to to utilize to build a level of rapport. How are you? Yeah, going really well. Actually, it's been a productive day. Rob, you've been down in Melbourne since 6:30 this morning. The beauty of an online meeting, hey, you can travel around the world and do it from the comfort of your own home. Are you enjoying that? Yeah. And it instantly puts a smile on Rob's face. He'll then go into the meeting, and if anybody knows Rob, ask him an open question and he will definitely answer that question for you. So ask the right question and you will definitely get people speaking. Now he'll go silent on me. Yeah. Any questions coming in?
Any more questions, guys? Pop them on the no, we had the industry, so we've got solar, software, sales. So any challenges in around the discovery, guys? So any questions that maybe you want some example questions, or maybe you want to share some of the questions that you ask. This is a chance to talk about, maybe plug your business. Maybe get in there. I think just as we're waiting them to go through, because there is a bit of a delay, I think for me, making sure that we're listening, we're aware of what the response is. I had a coaching session today with Ken Blowfield and the Your Social Voice team. Hey Ken, if you're watching over in WA, and we were talking around, just really truly listening to what the customer is saying in terms of the services that they're after. When we ask that, what does perfect look like? What do you really want from this? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, what we're after is this, this, and this. And actually then re-clarifying that back and saying, okay, so what you're telling me is you're after these particular areas. If we could do that for you, I'm not saying we can, but if we could, mm-hmm. do you believe that that's something that you would be interested in looking into further? And almost getting that buy-in, from them to suggest that, okay, it's almost like pre-closing. It's like you're getting permission to present based off of that information, because you don't want to present without fully understanding, but you also want to get some level of buy-in, which is why I mentioned that question earlier around, are you going to get buy-in, or do we continue down the discovery? And I think you can always continue discovering even while you're moving forwards into presentation mode.
Yeah. So the power of repeating, Rob, that's what I really took from that as well. Could you unpack that? Why do you feel from a sales perspective, or even just a general conversation perspective, why is it so important to sometimes actually repeat verbatim what the customer said to you?
So why is it important to repeat back to back? It
I love that.
it shows that you're listening.
Yeah.
Just doing it then, and as soon as I did it, Chris was smiling. But yeah, it shows that you're listening. And secondly, it buys you a bit of time. Mm-hmm. If you don't know the answer to the question, then it gives yourself a couple of seconds to think about what you're going to say. Mm-hmm. So they would be my two reasons why I do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. Because at the end of the discovery, the whole purpose before we present is the powerful recap. Again, anybody taking notes, that when we look to recap the information or the intelligence that we've gathered, been able to compound the 3 to 5 yeses in there. That's not the old school sales tactics of just compound yeses until you get to the close. The compounding yeses in the recap is, for me, so crucial before I go into present, and that's to make sure that I've uncovered exactly what the customer is looking for. And I can say, just before we do look at a couple of options that may be available to yourself today, is there anything else that's important to you that I may not have uncovered today? Please let me know, because I'd love to know before we start looking at a few options. Is there anything I've missed? And the customer says, no, you're good. Then I know I've uncovered it. But a lot of times, and Rob, you'll probably testify for this, they'll say, yeah, I mean, you've covered it, but, and there'll be still more that will come out from that. So again, the power of the recap can really finish off the discovery phase.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I wouldn't add any more. But a couple of questions. We've had some people with their Kev Davey from Gulf Western has said, "What is your idea of a perfect supplier?" So we're trying to unpack and then tell you what the perfect person is. Alex has asked a question here. How would you approach the discovery / intro with a more cold call situation? So how would you approach that? Chris, you might have a think about that. So how would you approach the discovery and intro with a more cold call situation? For me, if I'm getting this question correct, I would approach it in a way of not having a set intent on it. Mm-hmm. Introduce yourself and perhaps frame the conversation. I just really want to quickly understand your needs, and I'm going to ask a couple of really quick basic questions to understand whether or not a secondary conversation is worthwhile. So it's almost like I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and based on those answers, we might move further on and then actually get permission. So that kind of, rather than interruption-based selling and just kind of presenting really hard, I would like to frame the conversation and say, hey, I'm going to ask a couple of real quick questions. And if those answers don't kind of mirror up to what we do, then I'm going to let you go. That's how I would do that. Chris, do you want to add something to that?
Yeah, that's exactly the way I'd go in, with no sole intent. Alex as well, if I'd just sort of say in there the ART technique, so that's to acknowledge, respond, and transition. So acknowledge, respond, transition. So you get, from a cold outreach perspective, I'm busy, call me back. Acknowledge it, repeat that. You're busy, call you back. Firstly, absolutely, I respect where you're coming from, because I've literally called you out the blue today. But can I just confirm? So I'd transition with a question to get essentially your foot in the door, and as Rob said, be able to actually unpack to see whether you can help the customer from there. So I'd probably look at that 3-step process called ART. Any questions on that, obviously just reach out, but hopefully that would help from an outreach perspective.
That kind of ties in nicely to what we were talking about, the repeating back. It shows that you're listening. One of the most frustrating things about receiving a cold call, and actually a lot of business owners don't mind it if the individual on the other end is listening.
100%.
Not listening, it's frustrating. So if someone says, mate, I'm in a meeting, and you go, yeah, well, look, anyway, it's like, if you just do that, okay, I respect the fact that you're in a meeting, and it will just diffuse it slightly, because it shows that you're paying attention. So I hope that helps. We've got 4 minutes to go, and we've got one more question before we wrap up today. Jared said, I'd love some conversation starters when meeting a prospect. For example, I met a business owner this week, started a conversation around what he thought of his M5. Nice. What do you use that sets you apart from others and breaking the mold? I think it's more so in the the bloke's not going to remember the guy that was talking about his M5. He might remember the relation around that, and perhaps the interaction around it. And remember, humor is memorable. So if you can I'm not saying go out there with a stand-up comic routine, but I'm suggesting that perhaps there is a way for you to be able to, you know, have someone, you know, just put a smile on their face. You go, the M5, wow, okay, business must be good for you then. Plenty of money in that marketing budget then, I reckon, eh? Like just that little joke there. I said it yesterday with someone saying, okay, that's your third holiday this year, business going well. Maybe you could teach us a thing or two about sales. And it just like, it's just a little funny but so that's how I approach it. Not everybody would do that, but I like to create a bit of humor in there. I don't know, Chris, if you have an answer to that question.
Yeah, I'd follow that, Rob. Essentially, just looking to build humor or humility with the interaction. I think that's a good way. So hopefully that helped, Jared.
Yeah, and we've got Roshan. Welcome along. He said what they can relate to, like a common product. Yeah, so you want to find common ground. We've done some Training Tuesdays before. If you're in the academy, go back and have a look through those on rapport building. Yeah, make sure you go and watch those. But yeah, you want to find common ground. And if you don't, again, if we're using the car as an example, you know, just by, okay, well, you know, you might say, all right, well, I know what I drive, X, Y, and Z. What about you? So you might not say, oh, I've got a BMW, because you might not. But it's just that relate. You know, can you build in your relation and then ask another effective question off the back of it? What do you like about driving it? What you know, even in conversational rapport building, it's that whole adage of, you know, of being interested versus interesting. We say it a lot, but we mean that. Can you genuinely be interested? How's your day going? Yeah, all right, yeah. Oh, how's it really going? Oh, well, you know, and suddenly, like Chris said, if you do that to me, I'm going to talk for 15 minutes. Shot. We've got 1 minute to go, and I'm loving this space. I feel like I could do star jumps, but
please don't. But like we said at the start, Rob, we have a bit of announcement to make, mate. So if you want to run through a bit of a special that we have running today.
Yeah, okay. So guys, we've got as you know, we are all digital. There is no physical training at ISR, but in November, we're going to be having the SWISH Bootcamp. It's a 2-day event solely with our director Ryan. It's very much so for ISR Academy members. I mean, we are open to obviously individuals that aren't in the Academy as well, but having a good knowledge of sales going into it. And training, but we're actually going to be offering individuals a month inside the Academy. So if you're not part of our training, we will release you a month's worth of digital training complimentary inside of that, and and this is the clincher, a ticket to the Unleash the Power Within with Tony Robbins on the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th of September, and all of that is from just 1495. So the bootcamp is 50% off. 1495, 50% off. So you get your month in the Academy, 2 days with Ryan, and 3.5 days with Tony Robbins on Unleash the Power Within, which Chris, I know that you're going to, and you're excited about it, hey?
I can't wait. 3.5 days with him. I had this booked prior to it as well, so I'm very excited for that. So
yeah. Yeah, he was, when I first got into sales, I watched Tony Robbins' videos about motivation and mindset, and yeah, the guy, not everybody is a fan, but we're big supporters of Success Resources and of course Tony. So yeah, so guys, if you want any information about that, please feel free to reach out to us. Pop me or Chris a message on LinkedIn. Make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn. Subscribe to what we do. Make sure you jump onto YouTube and share and comment and get involved, guys. This is a community and we really want to help and give as much as we can. So hopefully you've enjoyed and taken some value. This is every Tuesday on the 1st of every month. Once a month, we will go live on Facebook and share some insights. Chris, what are we covering next month in Training Tuesdays?
So we'll actually be rolling on to how to present. So once we've made the winning first impression, we've discovered the client's needs. Now it's about presenting back exactly who you are, who you work for, your company, and your products and services.
How to present. Excellent. Well, Chris, always a pleasure to do Training Tuesdays with you. Guys, thank you so much for everyone that's come on board to, I haven't quite figured out where I'm looking yet. Yeah. I've looked there, I've looked here, I've looked there. Yeah, hopefully there was some value there. Guys, have an amazing rest of your Tuesday. Obviously, those in Victoria, we stand with you during this tough time. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you again the first Tuesday of every month with me and Chris. I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, take care and have a great week. See you, everyone.
See you guys.